straight if you need.
2, 1.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to NPU Live. I'm Keri Rodriguez.
And I'm Tim Langen.
Today is Wednesday, April 20th, 2020. It's Wednesday. We made it halfway through
Hump
week
day.
6.
Hump day.
Oh my
If
goodness.
that matters anymore.
Yeah, the 3 days most important to us, yesterday, today, and tomorrow. They all just kind of flow in together.
That's right.
And we were actually talking this morning about, I don't know if we're doing this whole work-life balance thing very well. And I'm hearing this from a lot of people, a lot of folks saying like the lines are blurred. If you have the luxury of being able to work from home, it just doesn't stop. It doesn't stop. And it just seems like one big long cycle. So hopefully this morning, our little conversation here, our centering activity that we have every morning at 9 a.m. Will help you just to kind of, get some perspective, get some information, get some news, so that we can all kind of move forward together positively. We have a lot of exciting guests today. I'm really
busy
thrilled.
day.
Mira is with us, of course, from Prepared Parents. And don't forget, you can visit their website, preparedforsuccess.org. And then we have Jen from the Data Quality Campaign. And I know it sounds a little nerdy, data quality. What are you talking to her about? Well, don't you worry, parents. This is important information that you can use, information that's going to empower you. What questions should you be asking and looking for as our kids, now many of us, hearing that the schools have been suspended through the end of the year. What is that going to mean for our kids? What numbers should we be looking for? What should we be holding folks accountable to? Lots of promises being made, lots of plans coming together. Should we be in the mix? We're going to be talking to Jen about that. And then our dear friend who feels like family, Jose Rodriguez,
That's right.
UnidosUS, Massachusetts Parents United, a proud affiliate of UnidosUS, and then of course Marisol Rarucha.
6 degrees of separation from Marisol Rarucha. Everyone's tied to Marisol.
She is on the board of UnidosUS, and so it's like family.
That's right.
And Jose is incredible. And so lots of check-ins with Texas. We went Jersey heavy yesterday. Today we're in Texas.
No, it's Texas.
Tennessee, we go hard in. We just pick a state. We go in deep.
We throw a dot on the map, and then we book the guests.
And so it's wonderful. So
there you go.
Glad to have you all with us on this Wednesday. Tim, what's happening today?
Well, Texas is a big state, by the way, too.
It is.
It's really big.
Very big.
I have another story of when I drove across the state. This time I actually did it.
He actually drove.
I actually drove this time. This wasn't like my great Tennessee story yesterday.
Where he didn't drive.
Where I didn't drive, but I wanted to. I actually drove once from Houston to Dallas. 3 hours across. A lot of land.
I see. Why did you do that?
For work at the time.
Huh.
Yeah, one warehouse to another. It was fun.
See, I'm looking for a little bit more juice.
There's no juice. There's no juice. There was some cows. There was some cool fast food chains. What a burger? What a burger? Great burgers.
Yeah, but I want to hear I had to drive across Texas because there was a building burning down and I had to save my folks in the call center. No.
I drove straight through and nothing happened. Didn't even get out of the car.
You gotta work on these stories.
I know. My kids tell me that too.
Make them a little bit more juicy.
My kids tell me that too.
That's true.
Well,
reigning hero, reigning champion of storytelling right here. Just saying.
They're just trying to make you feel good.
In this house.
Anyway, in the world today, again, obviously COVID-19, our main story. 45,070 deaths in the U.S. out of 825,183 cases.
Really getting close to that million case mark.
Yeah, and making up a third of the world's cases right now. And it seems like we knew about this, or there were deaths in the U.S. Before it was being reported. California is saying that the first known death in the U.S. was likely on February 6th in the Bay Area, so a month or so before the shutdown.
And a month. Before we were actually there.
We were there. We were hanging out in the club with 300 people.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. That was the Fillmore.
That's right.
That's pretty incredible. We walked across the Golden Gate Bridge.
Golden Gate Bridge.
The beginning of March.
That's right.
It seems like an eternity.
Whole lifetime ago.
My goodness. But now we're finding out again, as we've been saying on this program, this is an evolving story. We don't know everything about this virus. We don't know everything about how it's transmitted, why it's transmitted, how long it stays on surfaces, whether or not you can get reinfected with it if you've already been positive.
Right.
All of these things are kind of up in the air right now. And now we're finding out that really fascinating story last night on MSNBC. I'm revealing that we watched news last night. Mira's going to be.
Sorry, Mira. Sorry, Mira.
Sorry, we weren't supposed to watch news last night. That was her.
My bad.
Anyway, but on MSNBC last night, it was really interesting. There was a doctor talking about the fact that there are a lot of people coming into hospitals that are being treated for other things, like somebody who got stabbed in the shoulder.
Didn't even know he had
didn't
COVID.
even know he had COVID. It's something that in some people it can be in your lungs, and you don't even know that you
until it hits you.
Until you're so symptomatic. It's an unfortunate comparison, but I'm thinking back to, my ex-husband passed away from stomach cancer, and he was diagnosed when he was 38. The tumor was so big in his stomach because you don't really notice a lot of the symptoms until you've got a big mass, and then you can't eat. And oh my God, and nobody thinks at 38 you're going to get stomach cancer, but it really reminded me. It was like, you could have COVID in your body, COVID pneumonia, as they were calling it, kind of lurking there, and you don't even know that it's going on. Like folks walking into emergency rooms with really low oxygen rates,
right?
Like if you were on the top of Mount Everest and you just don't know it. So again, so much we don't know about this disease. I think there's a lot more information to come, and so follow the CDC guidelines. Keep your face and nose covered. Don't go outside. Listen to your governor.
That's right. Or don't listen to your governor, depending on what state you're from.
Yeah. If you're in Tennessee or Georgia, listen to the governor of New York if you live in those states.
That's right. Listen, if you're in those states, listen to the governor of New York.
Yes.
Just saying, okay.
President Governor Cuomo. Yeah. See, this is news and opinion. What are you gonna do?
That's right. And hairdressers and tattoo artists and masseuses, I'm not coming to see you. Sorry.
No.
Shut it down.
Well, it is interesting because we did have a representative from the Tennessee Chamber of Commerce, one of the senior officials there, coming on talking about the reopening of businesses in Tennessee, including beauty shops and tattoo parlors and all of this.
How bad do you need that tattoo?
I don't know. I got a couple of tattoos, so
but how bad do you need an Inagata on your arm?
Yeah, I think I could skip it. Okay. I think that's a sacrifice I'm willing to make.
Yeah, just give it another year and a half, guys. And it's really important because the CDC has actually warned, a CDC official warned yesterday that we could actually get a worse wave of coronavirus in the winter because it could combine with flu season. So we gotta hunker down, guys, because it could get worse in the winter. This might be a cakewalk. Along with that, President Trump, 60-day suspension of issuing green cards and temporarily preventing immigration to the U.S. Because that's a thing.
Yeah, because it seems like a convenient excuse to advance a political agenda, which you have heard me screaming and yelling.
Just pound the table.
Yes.
Just there you go. There you
Not a good idea, folks.
Well, you know what? In something we can celebrate. Happy birthday to Jack Nicholson today.
Happy birthday.
It's his birthday, Jack.
How's Jack doing? Do we know?
I don't know.
Oh my goodness. Well, happy birthday.
I don't know. He's made some good films.
What else is up for today?
I like it. Well, tune into the rest of our shows today. We have Christina Laster on at 2 p.m. Actually, before that comes back to Marisol.
That's right.
And then tonight we have Marisol again at 9 p.m. For our restorative session at the end of the day. But also, too, later today at 11 a.m., the National Parents Union, the Connecticut Parents Union, are going to be hosting Navigating Pandemic Politics. Mm-hmm. And that is with the incredible Gwen Samuels.
That's right.
And she's going to have such guests on as Dr. Howard Fuller, Dr. Steve Perry, Erica Sanzi, and Keri Rodriguez.
I don't mean to toot my own horn, but toot toot. Anyway. I like listening to Dr. Fuller and Steve Perry. You know, those are friends of ours in the National Parents Union. Corey, a good friend. So wonderful to kind of talk to them and make sure that parents are heard in the political conversations. There's a lot of stuff going on under the cover of darkness. So I'm excited to talk to all of our guests about that today. Me too. And if you have any feedback, tips, or ideas for guests, please send them all to info@npunion.org. That's info@npunion.org. Wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Tim, for the update this morning. Now we're going to welcome, as is our custom on Wednesday mornings, Mira Brown from Prepared Parents joining us live from Austin, Texas, to give us our tip of the day on how we can make it through. And she's looking fabulous. I love you in that blue. I love it.
Should I give away my secret or should I just go with that and smile?
Dude, come on, make us all feel better.
Underneath are running clothes.
Nice.
And it is very dreary here in Austin. And so I went into my closet and I was like, I'm going to get my kids outside before it rains or it's going to be a really long day. What can I put on over running clothes to make it look like I'm actually put together? And so this is bedhead and this is just a nice blue sweater, but thank you.
Girl, we're going to get in and out on this broadcast because it looks like, you know, those clouds are rolling in and mama to mama.
Gotta get the kids out.
The boys, because Lord knows what 2 o'clock this afternoon will look like if you're out for a few minutes. Just saying.
We'll get you back.
I would ideally like 2 o'clock this afternoon not to include me because I work in the afternoons and I have the kids in the morning, to not include me opening the door and being, would you please be quiet? I'm trying to work. It's like chaos is ensuing outside my door.
Yeah.
So.
Well, Project Daddy will be helping with that.
That's right.
He'll have them building.
Project Daddy has gotten a little loose. We're trying, but some of our best intentions haven't quite worked out. Project Daddy looks a lot of like spraying the hose on them because it's warm here, like letting them run wild.
That counts.
Yeah, in my family, a good old afternoon session of wash the house is always fun.
Yeah.
Wash the house. But that may just be a cultural thing.
And I heard you watched the news last night.
What's that?
I heard you watched the news last night.
Sorry.
And full disclosure, so did I. I was like laying in bed. I was like, I'm not supposed to be doing this. I'm not supposed to be doing this. Keri and Tim are going to yell at me as I'm like scrolling through.
Well, I feel better now. But you know what the thing is? I feel like, you know, I had all these good intentions not to watch the news, but I'm a former news reporter.
I know.
I am a high information person, and I feel like, you know, all day long I'm working and doing all of this stuff, and then, you know, I feel like I don't really have a grasp of what's going on. Maybe it's my control freak nature. I feel like I have to sit down and be like, oh God, what did this guy do now? Like, I gotta sit down. Okay, what catastrophe are we in outside of the walls of this home today? You know, and it's almost like, even though I know it's bad for me to sit and watch that news and it's going to keep me, because I was up at 4 o'clock in the morning staring at the ceiling, you know, thinking about, you know, human
wheels moving. Yeah.
But oh my goodness, I just can't resist. So
I just like listening to the Bailey veiled sarcasm on MSNBC. It's an amazing thing.
Yeah, Brian Williams, especially 11 o'clock.
Yikes.
Yeah. It's not even veiled disdain.
Not veiled anymore. No.
No, the way he pivots to and in the real world.
Ouch.
By the way, Mira, Kelly Williams-Ballard just wants to say, good morning, Mira. I love the blue.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. I will put it into the rotation of the 10 outfits I have that I've been rotating for the last 6 weeks.
You know what? I'm actually thinking, you know, I have a collection. I was teasing Tim. I have like 9 black shirts. All I wear is black shirts. I need to break out the spring collection, get some color. Like even I don't know what it is. It's week 6 and I'm dragging.
Yeah. It's in the back of the closet, just so you know, right? I was looking through, you know, it's a pretty small closet. I was like, okay, I'll pull that one out. It'll be new. It'll be and so I'm with you. I need to do the same thing. Just rotating.
Next week. Don't dare me, because I'll do it.
She'll do it.
And I have
sparkly breath. You have sparkly breath in a dress.
Yes.
I know.
Why not?
Hey, we'll wear the clothes we wore to the white party for the National Parents Union convention.
There you go.
Yeah, when are you going to wear that white suit again? Oh my goodness.
So talking about getting outside.
Yes.
You had some great tips today.
I do, and positive news. Let's lead with some positive news. So today's Earth Day, and so I thought we could talk a little bit about that with our kids and as parents and in general. And so here's the first. So it's also the 50th anniversary of Earth Day. Full disclosure, I did not know any of this, and so the team pointed it out yesterday. And I was like, oh my gosh, it's Earth Day. We have to celebrate this. And there's no time like the present when you're holed up at home to celebrate Earth Day. And so the unintended consequence of 1.5 billion people being at home right now is that our Earth is pretty happy. And so I think we've all seen, I wish I'd sort of sent a picture we could have put up, right, of the animals running wild, big smiles on their face if they could smile, right, of taking over sort of urban streets, LA having clean air in pockets of clean air, the Himalayas actually being able to be seen from the foothills. First time in 30 years. What was it?
McDonald's in Ireland. That was pretty amazing. Like sheep just the closed McDonald's. They're like, hey, we're here. Like it's extraordinary.
It's amazing. And I'm not trying to get into a political conversation with any viewers across the country about whether, but it's the truth, right? Like the Earth is very happy right now. There's been a drop in air and water pollution, which you can actually see, right? NASA's showing images. I mean, it's pretty remarkable and pretty phenomenal. And so I do think it's worth for some positive news celebrating. But in truth, Earth Day is 50 years old. It's the 50th anniversary. And they are going to be doing a ton of things virtually and online. And so I wanted to just share some ideas for families, for kids individually. Older kids can do this, by themselves, or for parents of younger kids, of things that you can do. And I want to give sort of a couple, and then you can get more on the Prepared Parents site, preparedforsuccess.org. But here are a couple of, I think, favorites. So the first is a mindfulness activity. And we've talked a lot about mindfulness and the importance of mindfulness to our kids, the getting in tune with your senses, the ability to calm your body actually helps you get focused. Go for a walk if you can, if it's not raining, go for a walk, take what they call a quiet walk. Have your kids get paper, pencils, draw up a map of your neighborhood, make it into sort of a treasure hunt, however you want to do it, but it's a quiet walk. The idea being to listen, to see and to listen, and have your kids record what are they hearing that they haven't heard before, and talk about it. And again, also that actually helps calm their bodies and helps calm them and ourselves, which I think we could use a little bit of these days, to your point, Keri, about everything being a little overwhelming for parents. And so that's one idea, to get out of the house. Following your kids' curiosity. We've talked about how psychologists view curiosity as vital, like it's a life force within us. Follow your kids' curiosity for the day. Ask them questions. How is social distancing impacting the environment? What have been the results of Earth Day activities since 1970? What has actually happened over the last 50 years? It's actually quite fascinating to understand the legislation and to understand how different communities have come together. There's just so much that you can do. Older kids on their own, yourself with younger kids. You can set an intention for how you want to be as a family during this time. Are you going to recycle in a certain way? Are you going to think about waste in a certain way, or whatever makes sense for you? And then, I make it a real world learning moment. We've talked a lot about sort of exploring and problem solving, and how we can use this time at home to do that. Collect data on where the food you eat is grown and packaged, right? It's all written on there, right? You can sort of start seeing trends in a really interesting way to learn about food production. You can plant an organic garden. Maybe not in the cold, but for the warmer states right now. And it could be a window, just like little things that make art with recycled material. There's a lot of ideas. We have them on our site that you can check out. If you are politically minded or an activist family, there are virtual rallies. I think it's earthday.org is holding virtual rallies. You can maybe introduce what that concept is, right? Activism to your kid and to your kids, if that's important to you as a family, right? It all depends on what's important to you and sort of the intentions and all of that. So lots of ideas there. There's a lot of different things that can include an entire afternoon, can be just a couple of minutes of your day, but it is Earth Day, so let's go for it. For me, I'll be honest, my family is under a lot of stress right now. My son is week by week in different places. He is really struggling, and we're just trying to get through a day. And so I think we're going to just take a walk, and we're going to get outside, and we're going to try to help him sort of self-regulate a little, be a little calmer. Maybe look for some of those roly-polies somehow connected to Earth Day. But I think that's watch a movie.
There's something magical about finding roly-polies.
They're so cool.
Obsessed with them, and he's become even more obsessed with them over the last 6 weeks. He loves roly-polies.
Well, and that's an awesome activity. Worms too, also exciting to find.
Yep.
I am often presented with many worms that are found in the yard. Which,
Dangling.
yeah, and they're all over the pans and
Yeah.
and they're
Great.
here.
You, like walk into the house with like and you're like, oh, that's lovely. Let's go look at them outside.
I'll do you one better, my dear.
Keep in the
You
jar.
know, and I'll bring this up in a photo tomorrow. But one evening, I was going to get into my bed, and I noticed that there was a mason jar placed right next to my bed, and it was filled with dirt and worms. That was a gift to me from Miles Lorenzo, my now 8-year-old, who, just thought it would be
That's so cool.
lovely. And that they could watch me and protect me while I sleep. And I think he was 6 when he did that. It was a wonderful, horrifying display of love. And
That's what we get from our boys and girls, but that's what we get from our kids.
Right?
I did make it through the
So
night,
it works.
and I was protected
There you
by
go.
the worms.
So instead of dream catchers, worm catcher, right? They have that concept of a dream catcher. We have one right next to my son's bed. Worm catchers,
Definitely.
earth catchers, the earth protected. You know, there's a lot of different ways to go with that, but that's an interesting display of love from our kids.
The way I'm growing in my motherhood, I've never been much of a bug kind of gal.
Yeah.
You know, you
I
don't
grew up in New York City. I do lightning bugs, or that's my kind of bug, right? I'm with you.
Max and Miles the other day were teaching me about how lightning bugs actually are cannibals and eat themselves.
That's a bummer.
Whew, yeah.
I don't think I knew that.
Bugs and worms. So things I never really thought I would explore.
But it's Earth Day, so let's go for it. Let's explore it. But yes, in all seriousness, there's so much we can do with our kids today. I was actually thinking of just pulling up March of the Penguins or other nature documentaries.
Mhm.
It's gonna rain and just like, let's cuddle on the couch and let's watch a documentary. It may last for, we get through maybe 30 minutes, 45 minutes, but hey, I'll take it.
I'm going to throw out an oldie but goodie, Happy Feet, which has a wonderful
Yes.
I've
environmental
never seen that
message.
either.
And then
Yes.
you can wiggle and move your body. I mean, if you like Stevie Wonder, like we like Stevie Wonder,
That's a great, I'm writing it down right now.
it's a great, rainy day activity. Stevie Wonder, Happy Feet 2. If you really get into it, great important lessons about the environment there and penguins. So throwing it out there. Veteran mommy trick. Telling you. Mira, thank you so much, and can't wait to hear how this day goes.
It's going to be a great day, Mira.
Sending you love and solidarity.
No
one
news.
mama to another.
No news is good news.
Yeah.
I appreciate you both, and I will see you tomorrow.
Thank you so much, Mira.
Mira
Mira
from
Brown.
Prepared Parents, preparedparents.org or preparedforsuccess.org as well.
So, Keri,
Tim.
before we bring on our next guest, we
Yes.
got to talk about something. If you know, there's one thing I'm good at admitting. It's when I'm wrong.
Mm.
I'm really good at that. I do it often. There's something I think we're gonna pose a question to people here, and maybe we'll get some feedback, and I'll put it online to see what you think of this. Jacqueline T. Bourgeois asks, what do you think of schools reopening now that folks are insisting that they be allowed back to work? So this opens up something that I'm not going to get political, but there's some things I don't believe in. There's some things I do believe in. I do believe in science. I don't believe in Middle Earth. I don't believe in flat Earth. There's a lot of things I don't believe in. So I'm just going to leave it there. Parents, what do you think about schools, businesses, life being reopened from the pandemic? Is now the time to do it? Or should we wait until maybe we have a vaccine or a test or something like that. So I'm going to post that on the National Parents Union. I'd love to hear your feedback, and we can share that tomorrow.
I'm gonna answer this in real time for me. I had a couple of state chiefs ask me this question, you know, I think just kind of anecdotally, like, well, how do you feel about this? What are you gonna do, Keri? And I answered it, I said, at this point, even if you open the schools, my kids will not be going back.
Yeah.
We're not ready. Yeah, you know, safety first, health first.
Yep.
Political consequences be damned, but until I have some assurance that
Yeah.
not only is there a solid health plan, but an educational plan,
Right.
I'm not ready. I'm not ready to re-engage quite yet. And that's going to be a process, which I think it's why it's so important that our next guest joins the broadcast, Jennifer Bell Elwinger. I'm butchering her last name, Elwinger. She is the CEO of the Data Quality Campaign. She is going to help us kind of get to the facts, the information, maybe help us calm down a little bit. What do we need to be looking at as parents? But, you know, she you know, in the best of times, I don't know what to call the pre-COVID times. Pre-COVID times is looking at all the facts, all the data, all the information. So we have really good information to base our decision-making on. And as parents, you know, here in Massachusetts and across the country, we're using this data to empower folks to advocate for what's best for our kids. But before we get into all that, Jen, how are you doing as a human being? How is life in your house? What's going on in Maryland right now? How are you doing?
Hey, good morning. It's nice to be with you today. And I also, in solidarity, wore my blue. So, so trying to brighten things up. Things are good here. I live in Baltimore City, and we'll talk a little bit about the data quality campaign in a minute. But I'm home with all of my children. We are 3 kids. My youngest is a sophomore in high school, and then I have 2 older that are in college, a sophomore and a junior. And you know, it's a roller coaster ride. I think that's how every family is feeling right now. There's ups and downs, lots of trying to find different quiet corners to do our work. My older 2, surprisingly, are, you know, really facing, you know, what's to happen in the fall. What's that going to look like for them, and making really important decisions about what if they can't go back to school, what happens, you know, will they continue to take classes online, and everyone's really missing their social connections. I guess my husband and I are just simply not enough right now.
I want to ask you about that because, you know, we've been really trying to open our little box here because we focus a lot on K through 8, you know, in this moment because, you know, as mamas and daddies across the country, keep folks busy. But our older kids too, like this has been a fascinating conversation. Talking with people across the country about how our young adults are struggling with, you know, depression and, you know, that social isolation, and, you know, it's causing tension in the house. Like,
that's right.
Like a nut. And it seems like one of the most important times of your life, you know, and everything's shut down. So how are you dealing with that as a mama? How are you walking them through that?
You know, patience. It is giving everyone the space that they need to work things out, but then also being present when they want to talk. And, you know, my daughter is a student athlete in college, and that has hit her. It was in the middle of her season, and that's hit her particularly hard. But also really just missing those support systems that they have with their friends. My youngest is a singer. He sings with the Maryland State Boy Choir, and he sings all over the country and the world. And those connections they're really missing. They're doing their Zoom calls, which is, you know, is a rocky start. But it's really giving them their time to have their outlets. And I loved Mira's points about, you know, really, you know, getting them outside and getting some air, because especially the older ones, they can really stay inside all day and they'd be perfectly content on their machines, their computers, their games, but really forcing them, if you have to get them outside and breathe that good air.
Yeah, and I think what's really important too is just understanding that, you know, the stress of this situation is going to manifest itself in so many different ways for our kids. And that's some of the information we're trying to bring to parents because, you know, I know my baby who's 7 gets really angry. he gets really angry and frankly pissed off that mommy is doing this to him and making him stay inside and making him do these things because he's afraid. And there's a lot of questions and a lot of uncertainty. You know, and that, you know, manifests itself in our older kids in different ways where, you know, you're ending up with, you know, fighting with mom and dad. We were talking about the other day where, you know, some of our 8th, 9th, 10th graders saying, well, why can't I just sleep over at my friend's house? My friend is safe. Come on, you're ruining my life. And don't you, because right now, like you don't see, like I remember being a teenager, so do you know, like everything seems like this is the most important moment of your life. You don't necessarily have that mindset that, you know what, if we're sacrificing right now, but there's going to be fun times again. It's just hard to keep it in perspective. So, you know, that wisdom from parents, you know, not only from for our younger kids, but, you know, older folks, the older kids that are going through this as well. I think it's important that we just recognize, you know, this is a struggle for all of us. And the other thing we're trying to say is that, you know, there's a lot of advice, there's a lot of guidance out there about how to support your kids, or, you know, what are the best tips and practices, but they don't all work perfectly. And sometimes it's just doing the best you can in the day.
Yeah. And so I would say, you know, and, you know, kind of bringing it back to the data quality campaign, you know, I don't know if Keri, you mentioned what we are, because I heard you say it's a little wonky, and then I sort of had a pause there. But what the data quality campaign, we've been around for over 15 years, and our main priority is that we are the nation's leading voice on education, data, policy, and use. And we advocate for policies and practices that make data work for students. And ultimately, and I think this goes to your point, Keri, is that we advocate to change the role of education data so that not every student is counted, but that they count. And that's really important, particularly now that information, knowing your child, knowing what are their strengths, what are their places where they need improvement, how they learn, what they like to learn. That's really critical right now as parents support their children at home with their learning. Knowing, you know, not a morning person, or not a night person, just little things like that. Or they're visual learners, they like to see it, or they more like to hear it. They, you know, knowing those different types of learning styles can really help support at home. And that's what our teachers have been trying to do every day, not just with like grades and test scores, but really understanding and collecting information about how students learn, so that they can tailor that instruction. It becomes even more important now when everybody is at home.
I think that this is where we are presented with an unprecedented opportunity for us to really use a lot of what we're learning to improve, you know, the systems once we come back. Like, to me, you know, in the pre-COVID times, you know, sometimes life is moving so fast. There's a lot of information being thrown at you. You're not spending all day, every day with your children. So you kind of take the word of teachers, you know, how they're doing or how they learn, and, you know, getting that feedback. But now parents are really sitting there. We've never been more engaged than we are now, by necessity. We just have to do it. So we have a lot of information right now that we're learning, that we're gathering. And so when we talk about, you know, in the times to come, the post-COVID-19 education system, what we're thinking about is, you know, how we use the knowledge and the information that we have as parents to help inform our educators, so that they can come up with policies that, you know, will really help to not only mitigate learning loss and regression that we're seeing, but also, you know, do our best to kind of say, you know what, we need more tailored approaches. Instead of trying to shove our kids into the boxes you've created, let's recreate the boxes and recreate the system so it better serves our kids. Is there an opportunity for that, you think?
Oh, yes, absolutely. Each year, the data quality campaign, we do an annual poll of teachers and parents, and we're doing one again. It'll begin towards the end of this month. But we ask parents and teachers that exact question: do you want data? Do you need it? How will you use it? And, you know, the majority of parents and teachers really understand that having data, having information is going to help them tailor instruction, understand also how students like theirs are doing in the classroom and in the school. That's really important information. But on the other end of that, parents and teachers need access, they need time, and they need training. And so as we think about how do we bring all of these pieces together so that we can start not from scratch when we come back, but really, help to make this as continuous as possible, we really need that information to come together with the schools and with parents so that we can have those conversations and pick up where we left off. And hopefully that gap won't extend to what we are expecting right now. And so, the mechanisms are sometimes more difficult to share that information. Sometimes schools have parent portals where you can see that information that teachers are collecting, but that's not always the case. And then there's not always an opportunity for parents to kind of collect what they're doing. But I was a classroom teacher. I started teaching in the Bronx way long ago. So it was old fashioned then. You know what? We had our pads. Look, my tabs. I'm collecting data right now. We had we had paper. We had our record books, and I would be collecting information about each of the kids because I knew how important it was to understand their strengths and areas where we needed to provide additional supports. And that's what parents can do now. As their son or daughter is on in a classroom call, they can observe and say, hey, are they paying attention? Is this, what are they learning? They can listen in, or even when your child is doing some homework, maybe, time them, not from a formal time, but maybe start to collect information. Do they struggle in math? Because, we don't see our students all day long in the classroom, but now we're really getting a bird's eye view. So what are we learning about their learning styles? And then how can we think about ways to share that back with their teachers and with the school?
I've got a bunch of questions for you based on what you just said. The number one question that I think we have to dig into to really get into the crux of this conversation is that, when people hear the word data, they get very nervous.
Yes.
They don't like data collection. They don't like testing. They don't like accountability, all of that kind of stuff. I always think about this, my staff will laugh at me because I'm always saying, you'll take my data, you'll take that information from me for my cold dead hands, because without it, all that I experience as a parent is anecdotal. And it's very easy to dismiss if I don't have data that says, I think Miles is not doing great, with his reading, or I don't think David's really getting the science piece. But for some reason, there's always this resistance to testing. And I've even seen it in my own kid, testing or accountability or data, but as a mother of one child that has special needs and going through that IEP process, I see for my Matthew, who has autism and ADHD, there's intense data collection always happening because we want to figure out how to support them. And they're monitoring and they're looking for signs of regression during vacation periods. And, they're collecting, like, how is he making progress towards his goal? It's very intense, and it's all surrounded around data. And that's why it's very strange. My other two younger children, who are, generally matriculating kids in the general ed classroom, there's not that, that intense data collection. Does Miles, learn more visually than he does, in other ways? Like it's just, trying to cram them into a box that doesn't always work. So what do you think, what is behind that? Is it the political, wrangling that happens, and why the reluctance to actually view data as, an asset, something really important to improving our system?
Yeah, well, I would take a step back and think about where we are in the pandemic, kind of bringing that up a bit. How are we going to get out of this, right? It is about data, information, and testing. You hear those three things over and over again, and that is how we're going to work with our students as we move forward. We must have information. And again, it's so that in the fall, when schools reopen, it's not one size fits all. And your example of your child, really has that individualized instruction. That's the path forward, because kids are going to need different information. We're going to need to diagnose what teachers are going to need to understand where they are now, and then how to move forward. What are the path? What are those goals going to look like? And that is exactly what we need for our country right now. That's why we're paying such close attention to the data, to where the virus is. Where is it peaking? Where is it declining, right? So where we can put our resources, that's what our school leaders are going to need also. And then on top of that is, how has this time impacted different communities of students? We talk about a word called disaggregation, but that's really just looking at different student groups, and did certain groups have an adverse impact to having this time away from being in classroom, maybe because they didn't have access to internet or to devices, or what happened there. But parents are going to need to have information to really shine a light on those different groups of students and how they were impacted.
So moving forward, as we approach that
Mhm.
COVID-19 period,
Mhm.
do you have like a list of things that you're thinking about that maybe we could translate for parents? I'd love to see if we could collaborate in some way, around this, like maybe a punch list of things that, parents should be asking and looking for, in terms of, determining where our kids are. I'm very concerned about, a lot of policies right now being made, I really think people have the best intentions, but just a one size fits all kind of blanket
That's right.
thrown on top of our kids, which I don't think is going to work.
It's not going to help. It's not going to help. It's not going to help our students just introducing curriculum and say, go run. It's really going to be about understanding where they are when they enter school. And, we can think about our summer programs, our out of school time programs as also supports for students during the next few months too. And then how can they also help with this? So I want to think about, it's more than the school. It's our entire community really helping the kids along. I would say that, for families, each year we also look at each state's report cards, and they do an individual school report card. Each state does that. And there are some key data pieces that families could be looking at to understand how schools are doing during this time. And so, again, looking at that information about student groups is really helpful. Just looking at how all students are doing is one piece of information, but looking at how different groups of students did. We may have an entry of a dog here in a moment. Chloe may make an appearance, right? But that really, again, thinking about how are we going to think about those very limited resources that we have? How are we going to target and use them in the fall and going forward? We're really going to need that. So that's one thing. Another thing that we would want to look at is, post-secondary enrollment. That's we're worried about assessments, and we don't have standardized assessments right now because of schools being closed. But post-secondary enrollment, what did kids do once they graduated? What happened? That's a really key indicator that families could look at. Also, attendance becomes another thing. And then for families, something that you could also think about putting some pressure on, or really requesting of schools, is putting things in translations for families that may not have English as their first language. That it becomes a real barrier to understanding what's happening in your son or daughter's school. So really asking them to help make that happen.
Well, in talking to the warriors you are right now across the country, seems like to us, we should just continue the work we were doing before, because this is what we fight for every single day.
Absolutely. We'd be happy to work with you additionally on this.
Yeah, and I really want to make sure, this is kind of a theme this week that we have going, that, you know, you got to be able to walk and chew gum at the same time. Parents.
That's right.
Overwhelmed. And, you know, frankly, the National Parents Union is an organization of over 200 organizations across the country of these parent warriors leading the fight all over the place, holding folks accountable. And it's hard, you know, in these days to kind of transition and figure out how to do that. But we must, because policymakers are making decisions right now. I'm going to get off this program today and get on to another call with a group of policymakers here in Massachusetts that are putting forward a bunch of recommendations that we are not going to allow to get through without our feedback and our context. And
That's right.
Continue to do this work because come September, you know, God willing that these schools reopen, we want to make sure that the policies and the things that are being decided are backed with data.
That's right.
And that we're setting up systems so that we can have metrics by which we are tracking to see if these policies that we're putting in place are actually effective. We always say here, you know, we do want to have joyful learners, but our kids can't eat joy. So we need to make sure that our kids are being taught the things they need to learn so that they can have a successful life. And data is the thing that helps us do that. So Jen, I hope, you know, in the future, we got to work together, girl.
We'll look forward to it, definitely. And just one last thing that I think, just to kind of flag, one thing that we're doing next week, we have Teacher Data Literacy Week, because now more than ever, teachers not just need to have the data, but they have to really understand how to use it. And so we'll be promoting through social media, starting on Monday, ways that states can help teachers really prioritize using this information each and every day in their classrooms.
Well, girl, parents are teachers now. So.
That's right. So they, you know, we should have a parent teacher data literacy week. What do you think?
Not just a dream. Let's make that.
No, that's right.
The information and you.
Well, great. I hope we can talk again soon.
Yes, and it's so powerful. And as results come out, you know, we're actually going to be launching a tracking poll of parent priorities and how parents actually see this, you know, to inform folks that are going to, you know, doing the data research and leading policy discussions about the things that are really important to us that we're concerned about. So we're going to want to pick your brain about that.
That's right.
We can be most effective using our advocacy to make sure that our kids are getting what they deserve. So Jen, thank you so much.
Thank you. And thank you for the work you're doing every day. I know that it's great that you're able to get the information out to families.
That's what we're here to do. Over 1 million every single week. So it's crazy. You know, people like this crazy stuff we're putting on there. We're proud of it. So thanks for being part of it. We appreciate it.
Thanks so much. Have a great day.
So nice to be with you, Jennifer Bell Ellinger. She is the president and CEO of the Data Quality Campaign. And these are the folks doing their best to get parents the information we need to make sure that our kids are getting what they deserve. Next up, we welcome a member of our family here. You know, we have the same last name. We're not related. We're related by heart. Jose Rodriguez from UnidosUS, joining us from San Antonio, Texas. He oversees parent engagement for all of UnidosUS. So he is like, you know, a superhero in our eyes. And certainly we've learned a lot from UnidosUS in terms of our outreach from Massachusetts Parents United, but also the building of the National Parents Union. And he's talking to parents across the country every single day. So he speaks our language. Jose, welcome, my friend. So glad to have you with us.
Well, glad to see you and glad to be here, Keri. And, you know, I was taking notes and Mira talked about Earth Day today. I remember when I was a teacher, I was a first grade teacher, and doing Earth Day was always an exciting time for us. So I wanted to mention, if you want to do some music activities with your kids for Earth Day, you can look for Raffi, a Canadian.
Of course, we know Raffi.
And he's got a great album called Evergreen, Ever Blue that has very good, appropriate songs. There's a big song, there's a beautiful song there called My Big Beautiful Planet. So that's my little Earth Day contribution to the conversation. And then also I liked what Jan was saying about data collection from the parents using this time to observe and to collect some information data.
So talk to, you know, we're going to dig into your work as, you know, the leader of parents for UnidosUS, but I want to tap your brain as a first grade teacher here. I'm a first grade mommy. I'm a second grade mommy too. So I need some help. Rodriguez, what data would you suggest I collect about my babies right now? What would be helpful for me to be observing right now?
Sound. Are they able to read? You know, also using reading and counting how many words they read. Are they reading fluently? Looking at, and then understanding, are they comprehending what they're reading? Asking them questions. One of the things that I used to do was I'd do a picture walk first. I'd look at the book, we'd talk about the pictures, and then I would do a read aloud, read with the book, following the words, and then have the kids themselves do the reading, and then also tracking, and the finger, you know, it's like using the finger helps them track with the fluency instead of just going word by word by word by word, you know, just moving the finger flowing, and to make sure that they understand what they are reading. I was going to volunteer my services as a teacher for the little kids around the community because I know the parents are going crazy, and I said, no, I better not. I don't think it would be safe for me to bring them in here and open the garage and have a little escuelita there.
Yeah, well, you know, there are, you know, folks in many communities doing that because, you know, culturally, that's what we do. You know, we look for, you know, abuelo to come and help it, or, you know, our tios, or, you know, whoever who can come and provide assistance, because so many mommies and daddies are out there working. You know, our community filled with, you know, the essential workers, the folks that are still having to go out, folks that are afraid because of unemployment, a lot of stress.
Exactly.
So let's jump into your work right now. Talk to us about your program at UnidosUS and what you're seeing and hearing from parents right now.
I oversee our Padres Comprometidos program. Our Padres Comprometidos programs is a parent engagement program. It's not a parenting program. And it is designed to help parents navigate the public school system. And right now, the current situation is very scary because all of a sudden, the parents find themselves as the teacher. Mm-hmm. And so right now, it's so important that they remain connected to the school. Sometimes as parents are afraid to call the school because they feel that they may be reprimanded, or they feel uncomfortable speaking to the parent. But the children are not on vacation. Even though here in San Antonio, in Texas, the governor canceled schools for the rest of the year. Then once that came out in the news, around my neighborhood, all the kids are running around as if they're on summer vacation. And so I talked to a lot of my friends who are still teachers, who are teaching, and I asked them, how are you doing teaching? Well, I connect with my kids on a daily basis. Not everybody connects. I have to be accessible for the parents. But they're also doing the ARD meetings for children who have individualized education plans. And so anyway, but some of the teachers in special ed are not connecting back to the parents, which again, that is legal. We can get into some legal issues there, as well as ESL or bilingual teachers. I know I was speaking to a parent in a rural community, and they have a very small population that they don't have a bilingual program, but they have an ESL program. So I was telling her, you need to talk to the school and make sure that you connect with the ESL teacher, because the ESL teacher is supposed to be providing that the assistance to you as a parent, because your child is learning English as a second language. So it's important that now more than ever that the parents are connected with the schools. But then at the same time, we also, once we started this staying at home, working from home, it kept me up at night for the first couple of weeks, because I was thinking how our parents were doing, because I know the families, I know the people that I'm working with on a daily basis. So we started looking at our education programs, and we surveyed, did telephone calls to about 54 affiliates from our network of nearly 300, from our 300 affiliate network. We called 54 agencies that are doing our programs. And 76% of the people that we spoke to, their most important need was community need, was food, income, housing insecurity, inadequate home space. We have parents who are migrant farm workers living in migrant camps that are very small spaces. I had one parent who said, I got 3 kids in 3 different grade levels. We don't have a tablet, but we're using the phone, but we share the phone, we take time, but we're getting our work done. 36% of those people that we surveyed are not connected. We're not connected and are now being connected somewhere or another through applications. I know in New York, they were using Zoom, and then a week later, they were told not to use Zoom, so they had to learn a new platform. And that again put a damper on things. 15% were of the people that we surveyed, were unclear about what guidelines and support that they were getting from the state and from the school districts that they were in. They needed resources, especially for undocumented community members. What resources are available to them? And then 13% would needed technical assistance, like how can you help us? How do what kind of help can we get? What are the distant learning best practices that are available for us?
None of it's just the devices too.
Exactly.
One thing from the Chromebook, but to hook it up, my goodness, it's hard.
I've been getting one of our affiliates in New York started connecting very early on with the parents through WhatsApp. Mm-hmm. And they included me in the group. So every morning I hear ding, 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 ding. So the communication is coming. And just today, a month later, parents are just receiving their tablets today. So now they're asking, how do I log on? It's asking me for a username and a password. So apparently the parents had to request it using a username and a password. So now they're having to find that, navigate that system. So it's been difficult. At beginning, one of the things that I noticed from this affiliate in New York was they were very excited about working from home. It was a new environment. They didn't have to go anywhere. They were at home. They were getting support from the school. They were getting tablets. Spectrum and Comcast was offering free connectivity services. And now the messages are very few. And they sound frustrated, they sound irritated. They're trying to balance their home life, their work life, and trying to work with the kids at the same time. I know one teacher friend of mine told me the other day that a parent had called her and says, you know what, I'm sick of this. I've had enough, just fail my kid. I give up, because the parent didn't know. And this is a parent in an affluent part in San Antonio. So again, that's heartbreaking for a teacher to hear, but it's also heartbreaking for the parent. So again, how do we communicate between and connect the family and the school and the teachers together in the community to help them get through this? Because, and I tell parents, it's okay to feel this. I have to remind myself that it's okay for me to feel bad. It's okay for me to cry if I want to. It's okay for me to be depressed. It's okay, but I continue to move on. And another thing that I tell parents is that this is a time to sit down and talk to their kids and learn about each other. And I recall a time, when I was a little boy, and I can relate to the parents because I grew up in a poor rural community in South Texas, and I'm one of 11 kids. So my mom was like the old woman who lived in a shoe and had too many kids, she didn't know what to do. But in the 60s, we got hit really hard with a hurricane. And I remember the community being flooded, and it was difficult to go out and get food because the closest grocery store was about 36, 40 miles away. And I remember the National Guard dropping off boxes of food for us, and it came packaged. It looked strange. I was not used to drinking powdered milk. I was not used to seeing powdered eggs. I was not used to seeing round meat coming out of a can. So those were all things that we were not used to seeing. And I think a lot of our families right now are experiencing some of those things, especially if they're getting food from a school or they're getting food from other organizations, food that they typically don't fix or that they don't traditionally eat.
It's
So
funny that you bring that up because, you know, here in Massachusetts, one of the things that we, you know, in the pre-COVID time have been talking to school districts about is the lack of utilization of school lunch and school breakfast because the food that's being provided is foreign. You know, it's not culturally competent. So
exactly.
what is normal to you and seems healthy to you as like a white person running a cafeteria system for a school, mommy may not trust it. Like mommy may say, don't eat that. Like, and so like, it's just not, so it's interesting that you bring that up because I don't think that's something we've talked about in current COVID, you know, situations, how, you know, we're dumping off bags of food, but then we're getting the food saying, oh, I don't even know what to do with this, you know? But
right.
So then, Jose,
That's what I thought.
Yeah.
That's what I was thinking about because, you know, I said we can't be talking about make sure that your kid is getting a healthy lunch or a healthy meal because we don't know what food they're getting.
Yeah.
So again, you know, it may be foreign, like you said. You know, it was like something.
All of these things, but you know, I want to go back to something that you said and ask you a very important question now about, you know, parents need to reach out to the school, you know, to trust the school, and to use them as a resource because, you know, right now, you know, our homes are kind of in upheaval. We're in a time where, you know, so many of us are just concerned about survival. You know, where if you have a job, you're an essential worker, you're exposing yourself to virus. You don't know who to trust and believe because you're not getting good information provided to you from any dependable source. You know, you're watching Donald Trump, you know, give you information, like it's crazy. But some of us have lost our jobs. Some of us who are working from home are desperately trying to hold on to that job so we can hold on to our house. It's a mess. And so parents right now are not in a good headspace because they're stressed out. And then you're worried not about health, your economic condition, about food, all of these things. Plus now you're expected to be a teacher. And so many of us have already been underserved by the public school system. We feel bad on a daily basis about literacy issues, digital literacy, all of this stuff. And we're trying to provide our children with an opportunity so they don't have to go through what we did. But these schools, it's hard for us to trust in the best of time.
Right.
And we have to turn to them. We know how many teachers and school systems and administrators have treated us before. And we talk about this even in the healthcare system, about how some, you know, communities of color and low-income folks are not going and seeking, you know, healthcare treatment because they know what they get when they go to a hospital for anything else. Racism did not take a break because we have a pandemic. But now as parents, you know, we're kind of forced to engage with these folks and get information. How do we reconcile our hearts? This is so tricky right now. Like, how do we navigate this, Jose?
Before coming to Unidos, I was at a school district here in San Antonio as the ESL coordinator. And I was the advocate for a lot of our English-speaking families, our immigrant families, not only from Spanish-speaking communities, but also Vietnamese and Arabic and other languages. But I attended meetings, and the first time that I went to a meeting, the first thing it was like, I felt that the teachers in the school district were attacking the parents. This is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong, your kid is doing this, he's like this, he's like that. And I said, let's just stop. So I stopped the meeting. I said, let's go out and let's come back in. So we came back in and I started the meeting. And I said, I know that we're here to meet about Jose. So we're going to go around the table and we're going to talk about what are the good things that Jose is doing. And when I posed that question, the teacher said, oh, well, he's really good at this. He's really good at that. And it de-escalated the conversation. So now the parent was feeling more comfortable about hearing that her child. So once we talked about all the good things that her son was doing, then we said, okay, so now let's address some of the issues that we're having. How can I help my son? I want to help my son because we know that every parent wants what's best for their child. And in building this relationship, and this is what Padres Comprometidos does, is we build a meaningful relationship between the school and the families. And we have a open conversation with the school principal that for many parents, that's the first time that they talk to the school principal. And very often the principal feels like he's going to be attacked. So I have to call the principal beforehand, and I'm not even in the school system, but but I have to call the principal and say, you got some answers. This is not an I gotcha. This is for you to be able to meet the parents. And once they do that, once the principal knows that the parents are there, not as an enemy to attack, but rather as an ally who will help them, they build that relationship. And now those parents are part of the PTA. They're part of the larger school community. So
okay, I'm getting emotional listening to you talk because I'm thinking about like the whole reason I started Massachusetts Parents United was because I was a mommy at the end of an IEP table for my mentor. I'm looking around and I was that mom that walked in the room and it was a table full of educators who had all of these fancy degrees who I could tell were very angry and annoyed with my little boy who was in kindergarten, and they had given up on him. And it was this constant bombardment of all of the bad things that he did. And that was translating to him. He was convinced he was a bad boy. He's not a bad boy. He's a very good boy that needed to have his IEP implemented. He needed help, and he couldn't sit at the rug at rug time because he has autism and ADHD, and they needed all of these educators to help him. But walking into that, it felt like a firing squad. And I said, if I feel this way, how many more people in my community feel this way? This is not right. The balance is off here. So I'm getting teary listening to you because that's the experience of so many of us.
And it is, and that is why, as the ESL coordinator, I was their advocate, and I attended the meetings, the ARD meetings. I attended the language proficiency committee meetings with I assisted with the parents to advocate for them and to ask the right questions. So it's important that you as a parent become friends or get to know somebody in the school district administrative level who can advocate for you as well and help you through this. I always tell the parents is that if your child is in special education, make sure that you know the special education teacher and the district director for special education. That way you have an open relationship with those people. And also if they're receiving special language services like English as a second language or bilingual education, that you know those coordinators and that you, so that they can support you. Because a lot of our ELs and our special ed kids we know are always going to be left at the end. And that was one of the things that I would go by a school and I would see FOSFA night. So I would go to the career counselor and ask her, do you need an interpreter? Because I can make myself available. No, they're not coming. We didn't invite them. I said, why not? Well, because they're not going to go to college. I said, how do you know?
Oh.
And I said, we should coordinate one. And I said, it was just specifically for them. And I did it. I did it in a safe space where my office was located. We had a big conference room. So I had a special FAFSA night for the parents of our English learners. And I brought the career counselors from the two high schools together to assist with that, to get the parents, to give them the information. So once I did that, I made the connection, because a lot of times schools think that because a child is in an ESL program or a bilingual program, they assume that they're undocumented.
Unreal. Jose, we have to hold it here because we're out of time, but I would love to have you come back. You have so much wisdom for us and you do such extraordinary work. We would love to have you as a guest again to get deeper into this, but.
Well, I'd love to, so thank you.
Thank you for your wisdom. Thank you for your work and your guidance and everything that you're bringing to all of your affiliates and your leadership. It's just such an honor to have you with us, and your work is tremendous, helping so many families across the country. So thank you so much.
Well, thank you, Keri. Thank you for having me here, and I look forward to continuing our work together.
Absolutely. Jose Rodriguez from UnidosUS joining us from San Antonio, Texas. I love Jose.
That's pretty awesome.
He is so
What a great show.
He is so good.
Well, he knows Marisol, so there you go.
He does. He does. So that's another broadcast for the National Parents Union live show here at 9, coming back to you at noon in Spanish. You can actually, Jose is going to be on with Marisol.
Great.
I think later this week. So
Wonderful.
you can catch him on that show as well. He's got so much wisdom. We're going to have him back to talk more.
You know how I feel about time. I mean, we were running over, but I said, we got to let this guy go. He was incredible. So everyone, thank you so much for joining us today. Special thanks to everyone who chimed in and gave great feedback. As always, Babette, Tashfir, Jacqueline, So Angeles. We were talking to everyone from Massachusetts to Puerto Rico today online. So we really appreciate that. And if you have any other tips, feedback for us, or guest ideas, please send it to info@npunion.org. That's info@npunion.org.
Thanks for being with us this morning. We'll see you tomorrow.
Have a nice day. Stay safe.